Chapter 43, Part 1. Wise men say that although incremental progress can occur in someone's understanding over a long period of time, the ultimate, profound flash of life-changing insight can happen all at once. The term for this sudden flash is satori, or enlightenment, and those who have experienced it say it unfolds with all the subtlety of an iceberg flipping over. Gregory's time with Atta was like this, a kind of gradual unveiling that ended with sudden, powerful change in Gregory's fundamental life perspective. Each time that Gregory came to visit his new friend, there was so much to discuss and to think about that the pages of Gregory's private journal began once more to fill on a daily basis as he was receiving and evaluating many new ideas and thoughts at once. Atta was challenging his thinking on almost everything, and it was an immensely powerful thing to experience. Never had Gregory been able to think and speak so freely with anyone, and as Atta both knew and accepted Gregory's nature, and as he was far more Gregory's intellectual and educational equal, there was even better closeness than with Vivian, although Gregory loyally refused to think of it that way. To his mind, Vivian was part of himself, whereas Atta was suddenly the best and closest part to him of the outside world. "Your story is incredible," said Atta, after Gregory had finished telling him the tale of his own past, sanitizing out the parts that were the secrets he couldn't reveal, and the tales of brokenness and drunkenness that he was too embarrassed to reveal. They were sitting on a sofa and an armchair in Atta's small city apartment, overlooking a busy street below. Our famous Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore wrote, "Let your life lightly dance on the edges of time, like dew on the tip of a leaf." Is that what you are able to do, in a way that no one else whom I have ever met has been able to do? I cannot imagine existence from your point of view. "What is it like?" asked Atta. "It is like anyone's life, I suppose, only there's more of it. Time rushes by quickly. You lose not only the people, but the things, and I suspect after a while, you even lose your initial identity. I find the thought of that last possibility particularly nightmarish," said Gregory. "Do you really think that you will live forever?" Atta wanted to know. "Not at all," replied Gregory. "As bad as my memory is, sometimes I wonder how long I will make it in this world, and I hope that if I lose my senses altogether, that someone would kindly remove my head and set it on fire so that I could be free of it all. I sometimes wonder if this way of life is a strange blessing or just a flat-out curse." "What difference does it make?" asked Atta. "It just is. You call yourselves the unchanging ones. How interesting. I suppose that our name for it has more to do with our perception of the risks and dangers, whereas your name for it has to do with how you experience your nature's benefits. On the other hand, we must change eventually, from what you have told me," said Gregory. "Your description of the entirely inhuman creature who came to buy your uncle's relics makes the hair on the back of my own neck stand up on end. How long do you think before that is me?" Atta laughed. "Thousands of years, perhaps? Who knows? I don't think you have anything to worry about any time soon." I wonder if it has been good for you, though, to not change. On the one hand, you are so much older than me, But on the other hand, I would say that you are still a very young soul. A lot of time has gone by in which not very much progress has been made, Atta told him pointedly. Gregory looked glumly at Atta's small coffee table. I've often had the same feeling, he admitted. It is not a sentence of judgment, Atta said. It just means that you have a lot to learn. With all your struggles, I would say that you have picked a hard but scenic road to recovery and self-betterment. It is strange, though. Most people who look like you aren't like this on the inside. I'm speaking here of your loneliness, not your agelessness. Your life has been filled with so much love and so much suffering. Yours has as well, I'm sure, said Gregory. Isn't that the nature of the human condition? What I want to know is how it is that you have made so much more progress than I have, and in so much a shorter period of time. Atta shrugged. I suppose I had to, he said. You may not realize it because you did not age in the right way, but age changes your mind. Youth is spent with one's focus at a middle distance, usually on oneself and one's own future, but without much truly deep introspection. The question we have is, what should I do with my life? And not, what is life actually for? Which is a far more important question, actually. The first that many modern people experience of things beyond this middle distance of focus is when they have children. Suddenly the story shifts and is not all about themselves and what choices they should make with their free time and with their talents and energies. So in this way, the shift of attention to one's children takes one's mind to the outer edge of the middle distance of focus, moving away from the self and outward to a broader attention on society as a whole. Then, after much time, the eventual acquisition of wisdom makes us at last more generous to those people and things at the far distance of focus, out by the horizon. At the same time, it also improves our extremely short distance focus as we become more familiar with our own selves, who we are, what we truly desire, and what makes us feel happy. This is no longer the original youth search for life's path, or what ambitions would best suit us, but rather it is a more evolved, fundamental kind of search, where tiny self-discoveries drop us into deep canyons of self-insight and understanding. Maturity lives here, on both sides of the middle distance, which previously made up our entire lives and was the content of all of our daily ambitions. It is akin perhaps to reading a book by starting from the middle and only then looping back to the beginning and the end. Time passes and we change. Our focus changes. Time forces us to change, and even you, Gregory, have to change. Forget your face. That's not even where change matters the most. Gregory nodded. He could well see how this could be true. Now tell me more about this Vivian of yours, said Atta. The fact that you do not age is extremely odd, but I hope you realize that your near-magical relationship with this woman has been just as unusual. She is gone from your life now these many, many years, you tell me, but you speak as if she was here in the room with us at times. What is it that you still feel connects you? Gregory shrugged. I'm not sure. I do not question the connection, and it goes on no matter how much time passes. I suppose it is some kind of responsibility for each other, on some level. Atta frowned. Everyone is responsible for him or herself, Gregory, for his or her own soul, and not for someone else's. Maybe we share a soul? Suggested Gregory. I don't know. I just accept it without questioning. Isn't it like you and your Kalpana? Well, Kalpana is a girl that I saw twice for a few minutes each time, said Atta. That is different than someone like you and Vivian, where you know each other and have spent much time together. Over time, Kalpana has become more of a symbol of faith to me, and less an individual woman. But we will come to that. You are very lucky to have lived so long, and to have had so much time, both in your life and with your beloved. I don't mean to be ungrateful, Gregory said to Atta, but it has also been difficult to live for so long, to fight so many wars, to love so hopelessly, and to not have much to offer anyone. Stop complaining, said the Guru. Even from what you have just told me, I know this is not entirely true. But I'm not lying, argued Gregory. My existence is hard. I'm not complaining about things that are not real hardships in my life. No one is saying that your gripes, injuries, and pain aren't real, but only that they are also a real barrier between you and freedom, and between you and your beloved. Your hurts are true, but there is also a greater truth here, and you must move to that greater truth. What is the alternative? To seek my pity? To seek pity over and over in your own mind? To become embittered and come to hate those who you believe injured you? To seek revenge? Truths that yield nothing positive are like a religion that yields you no personal salvation. It does not matter how long it has been traditional in your family. If there is no worthwhile value in it for you, let it go. I've never thought of it this way, said Gregory. Practicality can trump petty truths, smiled Atta. And speaking of practicality, I must tell you up front that I insist on paying you for these lessons, Gregory told him. All right, if you insist. But it does seem odd in this case, where I am asking you nearly as many questions as you are asking me, said Atta. I get the feeling that that is about to change, said Gregory. Now that you have heard my story, I become a bit of a dull experience, I fear. But for me to pay you is no difficulty. I am not at all financially constrained. But yet you have not described in your story any great wealth either, said Atta. No palaces, no racehorses or personal fleet of aircraft. Why not? If you have lived as long as you have, I would think that you have had ample opportunity to become very rich. Would you believe that great wealth eventually becomes boring, just like everything else? Gregory told him. But that would make it sound like you once had palaces and racehorses, but then their thrill faded, said Atta. It is true that I have myself never had palaces or really anything other than a small apartment of my own, said Gregory. I have had exceptionally nice furnishings, especially nice carpets of late, but I haven't wanted anyone to build me my own Taj Mahal or anything like that. And why not? Are you not interested in riches? Asked Atta. Gregory thought about it for a moment. I suppose not, no. Not very much, he said. Atta gave him a long look. No, riches do not interest you, but beauty does. Where do you stay when in Paris? Well, these days at the Hotel Ritz, replied Gregory honestly. But that doesn't mean... We would be hard-pressed to call you Spartan or ascetic then. You enjoy beauty in your surroundings, but I suspect your real focus is on an emotional hunger, and the currency of your inner world is purely emotional. and is rather dysfunctional in some ways. But in other ways there is something noble here, not to be lured by the wealth of the world. May I go so far as to call it admirable? Atta asked. Oh, no, because then I would think that you are flattering me, said Gregory. But do not try to distract me from what we were discussing. I will pay you for each visit. And then he named an amount that made Atta's face slightly change color. Do not think to corrupt me with the material wealth that never tempted you, the Guru said. No, it is not that, but that I have been doing some math and trying to determine how much you need to save up in order to return to India and retire. At this rate, if we meet for, say, half a year, would you be able to say you have sufficient savings to make your return trip? Asked Gregory. Atta closed his eyes. I confess, he said after a while, that I have dreamed of something like this. Oh, to be able to be back home once again and to see my family. All right, we have an arrangement. I accept. He looked at Gregory. So you admit it. You are uninterested in riches, but are very interested in beauty. Would you deny it? No, I would not deny it, said Gregory. Riches and beauty can go together, said the Guru. Wealthy persons can afford to surround themselves with beautiful things, and even with beautiful people. I think, if you don't mind my saying so, that under other circumstances, you look like the kind of beautiful person that a wealthy individual could afford to acquire. Gregory shuffled his shoes awkwardly. In my case, I fear it may be more like Dorian Gray and his painting, with a mostly wrinkle-free exterior, but with an inside rotted through with sins. Atta waved his hand dismissively. Well, you cannot be all bad. You are satisfied to hold yourself above the pettiness of material greed, at least. But yet I hear from your story that you have been a self-avowed worshipper of beauty. Now, looking at you, I half wonder if this is how Narcissus started out, with a face such as yours that a sculptor might want to sculpt, and seeing his reflection and falling in love with it, but being unable to ever even see his own face himself directly. It is true that being highly sensitive to beauty is a kind of gift in this world, but it must be a hardship too. Do you really want to lose your heart to every beautiful woman you see? Aren't you tired of it by now? And haven't you learned that the thing you seek lies somewhere far deeper in the universe than on this surface level? Change. Be free. Your heart deserves better than you have been giving it. I'm not just obsessed with external beauty, said Gregory defensively. External appearances are not all that important to me. No? And how about your own external appearance, then? Atta asked him. Think before you answer. It is not very important at all, at least not to me, said Gregory haughtily. What kind of a shallow person do you take me for? Atta waited for a moment, then stood up and said, Very good, then. He went over and picked up a bag lying under a chair. Next time, come wearing this. He handed the bag to Gregory. What is it? Asked Gregory, opening the bag and looking in. Some strange garment was inside. Think of it as a test. It was left here by another student, said Atta calmly. Gregory gulped. Are you being serious? He asked. Entirely serious, replied the Guru. Gregory pulled out some of the garment's brightly colored fabric, and he cautiously sniffed it. Has it been laundered? He asked weakly. Atta shrugged. It possibly might have been, but I wouldn't know for certain. Here's what you need to do with it. Take it home dress in it there, and then come here wearing it." "I only meant," began Gregory, hoping to talk his way out of his predicament, but Atta held up a hand. "No excuses, please. Just do this exactly so," said Atta. "You're doing this on purpose, so that I have to walk through the entire city looking like an idiot," grumbled Gregory. "I said no such thing," said the guru innocently. "You can take a taxi door to door, if you think you cannot handle the discomfort." Gregory crammed the garment angrily back into the bag, knowing that Atta had just called his bluff, and that now he would not be able to take a taxi, because Atta would imply that this showed weakness. "Do you make all of your students do pointless and ridiculous things?" Gregory complained. Atta smiled. "No, not all. Most only read my photocopies. But this is far, far more efficacious. Think of it this way. You are getting the maximum benefit of my instruction. But if it is too intense for you, you can always back out." "I find this very irritating," Gregory told him, having no intention of backing out. Who did this man think he was? "This lesson will be free. The discomfort of this experiment will be payment enough," he said. Atta gave a small nod. "If you say so," he said. There was a small whiff of fear, as he probably looked to gauge how angry he had made Gregory. So Gregory took the bag, stood up, backed away, and lowered his gaze to make it clear that he did not intend the guru any harm. In this sense, it was hard interacting with someone who knew Gregory was a predator. And then he thought how if Vivian were here, she would now know it too, and would probably also fear him, which was a horrible thought. Gregory stomped home in a rage. This was beyond ridiculous. He stuffed the bag in a drawer and slammed it shut. Then the next day he took it out, carried it to a laundry where he was not known, and told them he did not know if it was a shirt or what, but to clean it and then to medium starch it. At least the lice would be out of it before he had to put it on. And as someone who had lived through existence on the battlefield in the war between the states, Gregory knew a thing or two about vermin. He shuddered. The next time to visit Atta came faster than seemed possible, and Gregory pulled the strange knee-length garment out of the cleaner's bag and put it on over his trousers. It was the most hideous garment he had ever seen, and he wondered if it was meant to end at the knees, or if it was just Gregory's great height that caused the garment to end where it did on him. He could not fathom walking about with his bare calves hanging out like some sort of Scotsman, so he left his trousers on underneath, and decided that it was worth Atta's ridicule to do so. He packed his shirt, tie, and suit jacket in the bag to change into for his trip back, and then he rode the subway to Atta's place. It being 1967 New York, he ended up getting fewer stares than he thought he would get, but it was still awful. As he got closer, he looked up to the windows of Atta's apartment and was certain that he had seen the curtains move and that Atta was laughing at him. "You have done better than I thought you would," Atta said when Gregory walked in through the door. "Great to hear. Now can I change out of this and into my own clothes?" Gregory asked. "Of course. Here, feel free to use my bathroom," said Atta, directing Gregory to its door. Gregory went in, took off the loathsome garment, and with immense relief pulled on his white shirt, even though it was wrinkled from the bag. Then he slid his arms into his patiently waiting jacket, and by the time he was adjusting his necktie, he was almost back to his usual equilibrium. What a daft experiment this had been. "So, how did you find the whole experience?" inquired Atta mildly, taking the bag back from Gregory. "Awful and embarrassing and uncomfortable," replied Gregory irritatedly. "As you well know. What was the point of it all?" "Come, let's sit down and we can talk about it," said the Guru. "You said that external appearances do not matter to you, but of course they do. They must, for you to take the kind of care with your own appearance as you do. I'm not going to talk you out of your attachment to the external beauty of the world, but I am going to tell you that it is beyond foolish to lie to oneself. If there is something that you feel, be aware that you feel it. If there is something that you are, be honest about it." "Well, this is a bit rich coming from you. You would preach to me about deception, you false Swami?" cried Gregory. "Yes, you are right. It was not my finest idea. But I do remember that you asked me to teach you, and not the other way round. I did not sell myself to you as a teacher on some false pretense. You knew I was not a real Swami. But Swami or not, I have real things to teach you. Do not think that you can disparage something and at the same time still expect it to work for your salvation. And furthermore, if you will only have the flawless teach you, then leave here and be taught directly by the Almighty." Gregory had never heard Atta with his voice raised before. The Guru seemed to realize that he was all but shouting, because his next words were spoken more quietly again. "Here is the lesson, Gregory. We all have more prejudices and preferences than we realize, and it is part of our duty of self-knowledge to uncover some of these things. In some instances, we then discover we hold ideas that are truly shocking and loathsome, that we should try to rid ourselves of. In other instances, we come upon firmly held beliefs that are not so awful to hold, such as your belief that things should be neat, clean, and beautiful. It is all right to believe this, but do not at the same time delude yourself into thinking that you are free of bias and not beholden to any strongly held beliefs, or that you would never stoop to making yourself appear nobler than you really are. Nothing can be done, and no progress made, while you are not honest with yourself. Don't lie like this ever again. Stop and think what you are saying before you say it. Is it really true? Stop first and discover what is really true. I think there are many other things also that you would deny or hide about yourself, as there are about all of us. Well, maybe we can return to some of those things again later," said Atta. "I can feel the holiness so clearly in beauty," sighed Gregory. "How can you say that it leads us astray?" "Beauty is more about passion, desire, and lack than it is about an acceptance of things as they are," said Atta. "I really do think that this cult of beauty is what keeps the Western world from fully embracing Buddha's non-judgment and calm. The Western world is a world of artists, individuals whose impassioned interpretation of beauty causes them to seek out a certain order in things and in their appearance. This quest is fraught with judgment, as we say, this is beautiful, and this other thing is not, or this is more beautiful than that. It is a tiring way to live, and it is limiting of spiritual growth, but I will grant you that it creates some fantastic art. I'm not saying for you to give up your faith in beauty, Gregory, but just to consider for a moment that view might have its downsides as well. And then when you do indulge yourself in it, do so with prudence and with caution. That is all." After the lesson on the risks of beauty, they moved on to other topics. Atta was naturally curious to know more about Gregory's transformation into an unchanging man, but he quickly withdrew his questions when he saw that Gregory struggled to answer them. "Who are your enemies, then?" asked the Guru. Would one such as you even have any?" "I have only one," said Gregory. "It is the woman who made me such as I am. As you know, it was not by my willing and informed choice that I became such as I now am." "Ah," said Atta. "And you cannot tell me how it works?" "I cannot," said Gregory. "Do you fear her?" asked Atta. "I did at the time, yes. She was the hardest, most unyielding person I have ever met," said Gregory. Even thinking of her now was still very uncomfortable. "Do you think you will ever see her again?" asked the Guru. "Well, the odds are in favor of it. When the time frame is very long, the likelihood of running into everyone again increases," said Gregory. "As far as I'm concerned, however, a frozen day in hell is too soon to run into her again." "You genuinely hate her," said Atta. "This is unwise. As long as you hate her, you cannot get beneath the fear, and until you get beneath that, you cannot deal with what lies underneath. Accept, forgive, and do not ever fear. Fear makes us selfish and closed off and mistrustful. It closes our hearts. Moreover, when you hate, you very often hate not only the other, but also in some way yourself. Be afraid of the consequences of that. You must keep yourself strong." "But I don't always feel very strong," said Gregory. "The feeling can precede the fact," said Atta. "Gratitude can precede the blessing. Confidence can precede true strength. And faith in belonging can precede love." Gregory smiled. "I think I've heard this idea before. In the vernacular of the day, I believe there is a phrase which says, 'Fake it till you make it.' This is what you are saying, is it not?" Atta smiled also. "Exactly. Fake it till you make it. In your case, since you readily confuse emotion with reality without much prodding, as we can discuss next time, it will work doubly well." "You have lived very much alone all of these years," mused Atta on another afternoon. "So have you," Gregory reminded him. "Has it been hard?" "If it has, I just keep reminding myself that this path is mine by my own choice," said Atta. "Sometimes I find it almost intolerably difficult," admitted Gregory. "As I was telling you, my father abhorred this weakness in me, this easily injured heart, the emotional vulnerability. I suppose he kept waiting for me to grow up and change." "Why didn't you?" asked Atta. Gregory shrugged. "It wasn't me being rebellious or anything like that. Being emotionally well-adjusted is not who I am." "Fine, then," Atta told him. "So let it go. You had a good reason to do as you did. Now don't worry about it anymore. The point is, you were not the way you were out of disobedience, or because you were a bad son. How interesting that the impulse to please one's parents continues so long into one's existence. But we have to grow up one day and tell ourselves that, whether we met our parents' expectations of us or not, it doesn't matter anymore. The love that we crave has to come from ourselves in the end, and the sooner we confront that fact, the better." "What do you mean?" asked Gregory. "Do you mean that parental love becomes eclipsed eventually by a great love, the love of one's life? That most people would agree with." "What I mean is that great love is an illusion, as to some extent is everything else," replied Atta. "Movies and television are full of it. Think for a moment. If movies and television are selling it, how likely is it to be real?" That should already make you skeptical." This upset Gregory. "What do you mean?" he repeated. "Do you mean that great love does not exist? How can it not? And how can you deny it after everything you have told me of your own story?" "I mean that great love does not work as you suppose. It is not really experienced between two people, but rather separately, within each, and then an alignment happens of these two separate parts. Great love is a state of the soul, and all of the best love poetry of this world aside, we can only ever come to know the depths of our own single soul. All other souls and their disposition toward us we take on faith alone. The corollary to this is that your love is always in your own heart and not in someone else's. Think, if a woman loves you, what words will she use to tell you so? And if she is only pretending to love you, would she not use the same words? Wherein lies the difference? Asked Atta. Why, in the intent, answered Gregory readily. And are you a mind reader, to know someone's true intent? Asked Atta. No, but I put different pieces of evidence together, taking what she says alongside what she does and how she acts over time, said Gregory. But Atta continued his questioning. What if she is very cunning? What, would you have me doubt the intentions of everyone, then? Gregory cried. No, on the contrary, said Atta. Realize that, beyond a certain point, the intentions of others are not what is important. What is important is what is in your own heart. If you want to love a liar, you can. If you want not to love the one who truly loves you, you can. The ultimate drama of each love unfolds in your heart, and you house this love like your body houses your soul. Every love is complete in and of itself, and is its own perfection. Here, let me say it perhaps like an engineer might understand it. Love is an internal process with external implications. Do you understand? No, admitted Gregory, and then mumbled, when something is put in engineering terms, I'm even less likely to understand it, I think. What I am saying is that you feel great love profoundly and completely within yourself, or not at all, Atta said. So there is no other besides myself? How selfish this is, said Gregory. No, what is selfish is dumping all of your emotional needs on others and expecting them to fulfill them for you, instead of you fulfilling them yourself and then being free to selflessly give to this world. The angels of God can love you selflessly because they no longer need anything, but all of the other living souls in this world are the same as you, seeking the love of the angels. You cannot expect someone else to set aside their own search and merely serve as an answer to what you have been seeking. Think now how selfish and even illogical that would be, said Atta. I don't understand, said Gregory. This is entirely in the opposite direction of how I have been taught that the world works. I understand. It is upsetting. It is very discomforting to grow up with an illusion of love and then discover one day that it cannot work the way that our childish hearts may have imagined. Consider this, Atta explained. When you are younger, you are a net recipient of love, first from your parents, and then from your friends, and ultimately perhaps from your spouse. But when you grow up, a part of growing up is making a shift from being a net recipient of love to becoming a net giver of love. This is the conversation that we had earlier about focus moving out of the middle distance, about how having children begins many people's journey out of selfishness and to giving love to the outer world. But think now, from where is this love going to come? Would you believe, like the atheists, that love is a self-generating resource? No, it has to come from somewhere. But think now, from where? There is another law also, which is that there is really no love coming to anyone else in this world, unless they give up the desire to be loved, and long only to love others. Yes, that sounds very Christ-like, but how does one wish away the longing to be loved? Asked Gregory. Not by wishing only, but by finding a way to feed the longing so that it quiets, said Atta. I don't understand, Gregory admitted. Should we then never do anything for another out of a desire for love or for friendship or for understanding from them? Well, it is not so black and white, the Guru told him. Think, how much would you be motivated to do for others if you knew that no one would ever care? The point is not to be so embittered as to think that no one will care, but you will have to accept it as it comes, because you cannot control who will care, or when, or how. Do not go out of your way to dump all of your goodness on one woman, and then look only to her to give it all back to you. This is a recipe for disaster. Instead, let happiness find you as it wants to find you. Do not imagine that you can direct its workings in your life. You are not God, but you can have faith and wait. And proactively, we can learn to feed our longing to be loved in other ways. If we are all running around seeking love, where might it be found? In the arms of other emotionally starving people, just like ourselves? No, the trick is to get to the source of love, from over in the spiritual world, from God, and to find a way to fill our own hearts with it, said Atta. Then you yourself become the vessel for channeling this love back into this world, where you can then direct it through your thoughts and actions to other people, and you wait for God to give the increase as and where He will. Young Gregory, it may seem like other people exist to love us, but this is simply not the case. It is a very simple setup once you understand it. God is here to love you. The other people are here for you to love them. You go within and you fill yourself up with this love from beyond, from this endless source, and then you come back out into this world and pour your love out here. But not all of it, ever. No, always hold some in reserve for God. Gregory shifted uncomfortably. This sounds to me like a very dim and hopeless kind of world, Atta. I don't understand how anyone could live happily in it. And even if I succeeded, would you then have me restrain my heart and not even let it pour forth all of that emotion and love? Well, that is completely futile. How could I love Vivian but only give her a part of my heart? How could I keep anything back? I know it is difficult, Atta said, but there is no other way. Your Vivian is still living in this world, and who knows but your paths may cross once more. Should you two come to meet again, perhaps try to think of it this way. Hold some love back, and tell yourself that it is in reserve for her, for the days when she makes mistakes, or gets on your nerves, or tries your patience, or fails your expectations. Tell yourself that, in order to love her better, you will hold back some love always, for the greatest and best vision of her within you. if you want. Think of it as loving that part of her that will be there always, even once she is gone. Then when that day comes, you have not lost it all, because this reserved love is still there, placed by yourself outside of this world, and held in trust there for you by a divine angel wearing her face. A creature like you needs to plan ahead for the day when it will feel like the whole world has betrayed you, or when the one you love is no longer in this world, as all mortal men would be wise to plan likewise. Never give all of your love away, and don't rely only on affection doled out to you by others. You need to grow an unbreakable heart, Gregory. Be ready to always love on, and to not look for repayment or reciprocity or anything except fortuitous kindness. In the end, love will always come to you if you send it out into the world. But the arrangement that the universe has made with us is that we cannot be prescriptive about from whom or from where that love comes. Your job is only to give. Worry about nothing. Stay in holiness. When you say to send love out into this world, you are not talking about the love between a man and a woman, noted Gregory. You are talking about divine love. Yes, I am speaking of divine love, Atta said. The quality of this love is different, as sunlight differs from the pale imitation of lamplight. Falling in love into the kind of more mundane feeling that can arise between a man and a woman is a kind of bamboozling of nature, a tricking of our senses. Its biological purpose is to trick us into thinking that we will be fulfilled emotionally if only we engage in physical love. It seems like the answer to our every desire, but it is the biggest deception of all, because in the end, nature does not much care if we end up feeling fulfilled in a lasting way. Nature only wants to assure the propagation of the species. With that provided for, the deception starts to make itself known, and the cracks begin to show in its facade. The happy, satisfied feelings between the couple lessen, and then at some point, the emotional free ride is over, and they need to begin to put real effort in to sustain the initial vibrant sparkle of love becomes a spiritual exercise. And like all true and worthwhile efforts, it yields real blessing in the way that the initial sparkle between two people does not. So you can forget gazing starry-eyed at the potential for happiness in love between a man and a woman. At first, sure, the love goes swimmingly, but then the trouble comes in, and not just in a situation like yours, but in every such relationship. The basic nature of the thing is inherently unstable. Don't you realize this? Even if you had gotten your Vivian, disappointing days would still inevitably appear, and it wouldn't even be your fault. You need better gods than this if you are going to worship at this altar. Gregory did not want to believe this, and he told Atta as much. But then he added, "You are right. When I think about it honestly, much of romantic love is downright awful and agonizing. Why does it always have to be so uphill, with jealousy, lover chasing beloved, being spurned, and feeling so lousy at times? Why can't things just go smoothly, and there be perfect understanding, and a meeting of joined interests?" "Ah, but that, my friend, that you are describing now, is not love. That is friendship. And the point where love and friendship meet is your holy grail. And as for romantic love, what I can tell you, even from literature alone, is that in every passionate love affair, one learns infinitely more about oneself than about the other. The sheer incandescence of the experience blinds you to the kind of open, unbiased listening that is really needed in order to get to know the other. Oh, but what you get to know and recognize better in yourself. For that, a love affair is a mirror unlike any other. Gregory frowned. I dislike how you make all of love sound like a narcissistic act. Love is not a narcissistic act, explained Atta. But an affair is. Think for a moment of the players of bedroom games. They are not actually engaging in acts with the person who is with them. The other people are just the background, and in the foreground is this complicated relationship of desire with their own selfish imagination. Even in relationships built on less selfishness, you constantly have to fight against it regaining strength as the love fades. There are only two ways that I know of to keep a love so that it never fades. One is to keep it at the same level of love as a parent might have for a child, and the other is to transform it over time into a spiritual love. In the latter situation, you tell yourself that your love is not for naught, but that it is at some point coming back to your soul, although you know not how or when. In all the other kinds of love, there is dependency and the ongoing risk of failed mutual expectations. And of course, the passionate kind of love between a man and a woman is absolutely the least stable kind of love there is. Lasting love, in contrast, stands on its own 2 feet and does not sway to the push and pull of desire. It is the love of the angels. So you are saying that I would have to find some detached way to love Vivian, or else it cannot be lasting love? Where's the evidence for that? Asked Gregory challengingly. Atta sighed. Look honestly within yourself and see the reservoir of bitterness that keeps filling up as a result of your love as it is. You are hurt even by the mere memory of all the times she let you down, failed to appreciate your needs, couldn't read your mind, treated you unkindly, or otherwise failed your expectations of her. The bitterness accumulates and poisons your love and your spirit until a catharsis of some kind comes along to drain it away, but almost immediately it begins to refill. This is not the way to stable love. Is it not apparent from the way it feels in your heart that this is not the way? If it was the way, why would you be here with me now, seeking for a different path? They sat silent for a while. There was truth to this, Gregory had to admit. Life must not work in the way that he had believed it did, for him to still be so bad at it after all these years. He had come here looking for something different, but now that something different was being brought forward, he wanted to defend his old beliefs and not give these new ones a fair hearing. In my experience, said the Guru, many of the most passionate people are not, in fact, seeking out what most people think of when they think of romantic love. I find that these are, overwhelmingly and on the contrary, persons who are on a deep spiritual quest. The conflict arises from seeking spiritual love and answers from a worldly relationship. Worldly romantic love desires and demands, seduces and conquers. Spiritual love already is. It is more like a place where you feel yourself arriving without striving or seduction or persuasion of another. Yes, this I think I understand, said Gregory, nodding. I think you are familiar with this distinction, said Atta. Then hear this. You cannot lose this spiritual love once you discover it. It is a kind of irreversible enlightenment, and once you carry it within you, you will never lose it again. This is the great glory of love, that loving someone is like feeling the very best part of you trying to get out into the world. All of the most tender and self-sacrificing attributes and service to others that makes us truly godlike in our own right. Some loves are only about how you feel about someone else, but others are more about what kind of a person you ultimately want to be. In this latter case, it does not matter so much how unreasonable or unlikely or unrequited or possibly objectionable that love is. Have faith. No love is ever in vain. Generating holiness within, every true love bears fruit and is a sacred thing. So a great love is not dependent upon anyone else, and when you are ready to be whole and to experience it, you will. It is already there within you, and has been from the very beginning of time, and all of the other loves of this world build themselves up on the top of this foundation. In this sense, there is no point in waiting for anyone or anything. Build the inner love, even if you are all alone. Then if anyone comes, your great love will already be within, ready to magnify any other earthly love with its radiance, said Atta. Well, this is nothing like what I thought that a great love would look like, said Gregory after a while. You would be amazed at how many people get this one wrong, replied Atta.